Howdy. What are you laughing at, Nick? Huh? So Nick is back behind the camera because he took the day off last week. So just so you guys know, who is it that gives you crap? I want to make sure that he has all the ammunition that he...
Jeremy
Robarts?
No.
Or Jeremy.
How could you do that?
Jeremy Rupsick.
And...
Come on, you got it.
I don't remember. I don't. I have no clue.
Oh, boy.
Eric Robards.
Okay. Yeah.
Boom, we got you. We got you, Robards.
I can't wait till these guys get to be 50. You'll find out.
We're still not going to be as dumb as you look.
Maybe.
Oh!
We'll see. Okay, so these fine souls are visiting today, unfortunately. So this is the Raised Hunting Podcast, back in action. We are in week 3 of our 4-week, what do we call it? Like
series.
It's longer than that, isn't it?
No.
It's 4.
Oh.
We're probably going to end up being 5 because we have a couple that we're adding. And as you guys are sending us more things, we're learning more things we need to talk about. So
yeah, we've gotten some questions about turkeys, such as I had a humongous list the other day from someone, but I think we had answered everything. They were just in between.
Token. You know where I get that from? Darius Rucker.
Because he needed to make it rhyme.
He says token.
Only in that song. He's just trying to make it rhyme.
It's become a habit now.
Eminem's going to burn him for that.
That was years ago, and he hasn't, so.
Maybe because he was doing Hootie and the Blowfish.
Okay. Here we go.
Are you guys done?
Yeah, we're waiting on you.
Yeah, we're just waiting for your 17-minute intro to get over.
You guys are taking 15 of the 17. This is the Raised Hunting Podcast. We're back talking about turkeys, week 3.
Here we go. What are we talking about?
Turkeys, I said.
Which one? What series are we on?
Names of turkeys.
No, types of turkeys.
Bill, Mike,
Tom.
This is setup,
Jake.
I believe, actually. Setups and types of turkeys.
I think it's classifications of turkeys because then that's going to help us dictate like what you're going to do with the type of bird you have.
Yeah, I agree. Except last week we didn't get to the setup. Like when you do know where they're all at, you have all your equipment, you have all this stuff. Now what do you do? Go throw it in the wide open field? Do you go brush it in?
Okay, well, let's finish our housekeeping stuff. 1, if you guys enjoy the podcast, you get any value out of it, you appreciate anything from it, please do us a favor and leave us a review and share the podcast. Please do that. We also have Raised Hunting Apparel. As you can see, I get the leftovers because Easton tried to cut me with a box cutter.
It was not on him when that got cut.
Yeah, sure. Now try to back out of it. Through my sweatshirt. So the rest of them don't look like this. They look much more clean and crisp.
And if you guys are looking for the sweatshirt that Dad was referring to on last week's podcast, our black on black hoodie that is designed specifically, number 1, so you have a cool hoodie, number 2, so you can wear it in your blind and you do not get seen because it's black on black. You will see that the majority of them will ship immediately. If you are a XL if you're a 2XL or 3XL, I believe, March 24th, so I think that's like Monday, we will have them in, but you can still order them. So just know, and there's a note on the website if you go order it for one of those sizes that it'll be a few days delayed. The rest, we'll ship them right away. But
so
get them before
Apple,
turkey season. Oh, boy.
Pretty sure this is Eddie Diaz. But he changed his username.
On purpose?
You tell me. Ed Blackpine Diaz.
Yes, he did. A freaking turd. Oh, that's almost as good as Garrett Pape and his Black Pine comments.
I enjoyed this episode. Made me think about back in the day hunting with my dad as a kid. As a man with a family now, I embrace technology and love how it can still give me an edge even with limited time. Be Done 09 stumbled upon this podcast a couple years ago, and I still listen to it on
Light Show.
My drive to and from the fire station. Good knowledge is provided with great entertainment. Look forward every week to the new episodes that drop. Sick, we're having some epilepsy here.
Why do you think it's Christo? That one plugs in up top.
Well, it seemed like right as soon as he moved, that's when it started.
Oof. Oh, wow. Don't look at it.
especially if you've been toking a bunch.
We may just have to leave her off. All right. We're down a light.
Ew. Okay.
He's done with your
Yeah,
black
I think
pines.
it threw it off and stuff. So.
We apologize for the light show.
For those of you that can't see, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, Warren, just quit talking. Okay, I will summarize this one a little bit because we have 2 hunts in here, one about an elk and one about a deer. You know, I thought you were trying to say something to me.
No.
This is from our main squeeze, Bauer Schreckengost. I think that's right. We're gonna go with it. If I butchered that, my friend, I'm sorry. All right, August 31st, I got the opportunity to go on an elk hunt with a family friend who owns land, kind of guided, you could say. The first 2 days, we saw 2 to 3 elk, and I learned a lot just being there. Day 3, massive thunderstorms moved in, starting wildfires. I was nervous my trip was going to end after that. Day 4, we get to go hike on the tallest mountain on the property, mainly to look for more wildfires from the lightning strikes. Quickly, everything changed, and we found ourselves in a golden circle of 5 screaming bulls and over 100 cows. It was insane. We got up into a watering hole and had a close call with a 5x5 about 15 to 20 yards, but sadly, a tree was in the way. We started working back out to regroup and grab lunch. On the way out, we heard a faint bugle 200 yards away, and I spotted a bull rubbing a tree. We called and he called. He came up to about 40 yards, standing broadside, a big 6x6 mature bull. There was a slight problem, though, one big tree blocking all the vitals. The bull stands in front of that spot for about an hour and a half, just rubbing a tree and not bugling, but definitely mad at my caller. Finally, he steps out at 35 yards, and I get a perfect shot on him. After the shot, Todd comes down, I'm assuming that's his caller, comes down saying that's a nice 5x5, and we friendly argue a little bit. How I swear that he was a 6x6. We had no blood, so we began a grid search, and I heard Todd scream. I knew he had found him, and he ran like a fat guy to a buffet. I cried and then made the hardest call to my dad, where I couldn't even stop crying while trying to show him on a video call. He was a big, mature 6x6, scoring 280 inches. Now, fast forward to November rut in Minnesota. I'm having a rough week. I went out to the stand on a Saturday morning. It was a gun opener, but I took my bow. I don't really get much enjoyment from gun hunting anymore. 10 to 15 minutes after shooting light, I heard 2 grunts. I grabbed my call, hit a few soft grunts, and here he comes, this wonky fork, and I'm thinking I'm going to pass him. He starts getting a little closer, and then I think to myself, man, he looks about as old as David. Stiff, yeah, he's talking to you.
You think?
Stiff-legged and bristled up. I thought for my first buck with a bow, I'll take this shot. 35 yards, hit a little bit forward, and the arrow somehow redirected off the shoulder blade and double-lunged him, and he went 50 yards and died. Crazy part of the story, 2 years prior, my dad shot his biggest buck out of the same stand and the same trail and died in the same area. Sorry for the longest message ever, but keep up the good work. Sorry I didn't use any of the raised hunting products, but maybe in the future I will. Yeah, you better if you send us another story, my friend. You're teaching me how to read.
No, that's still quite a ways from one of the longest ones.
Yeah, I don't know why Dad was yelling about it.
Well, I don't know.
That right there.
I mean, his last name, he must be German or something.
Yeah, Scheffel bastard. making fun of my age. Scheffel bastard. You just remember that. You just got a new
I
last
thought that
name.
was right.
I think it's Schreckengost.
Okay, Warren. Warren just says it with a little more emphasis.
I think it's Scheffel bastard.
I like Shuffle Bastard more. Some of these turkeys are Shuffle Bastards.
Oh yeah, I agree.
I don't know, Nick. You gonna pull a history lesson on me here?
He's going to be like, it's actually Canadian.
Yeah, all
Nick?
French.
No, Shrek a Bastard or whatever.
Now it's all mixing.
Oh, well. All right, let's get started with talking about turkey. So today, the specific topic is what kind of turkey are you dealing with? Now, we named them. I mean, we've given them names. This has been going on for years because of what they do, kind of like what they're acting like. And so this is not official. It's not like you're going to be able to go Google this and find that these names.
Oh, it's official.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
raised,
Raised hunting official. So anyhow, do we want to talk about them in order? You want me to read them all off, and then we'll go through them, or what?
Maybe we should go
Backstory a little bit.
Well, I think maybe we should go around the table and which ones are your favorite? Except I think everybody's got
Everything
gonna
has the
say-
same ones. Although
No,
I
I could see him all
different.
being like, no, I like the art
Yeah.
of the church ones or blah, blah.
Yeah.
I
I
do
could
like the
see
church
that.
ones,
See?
but they're not my favorite.
Yeah.
I like the crackhead. I mean, that
I
makes
like the crackhead.
The Crackhead is is one of the names for them, and I would agree with the Crackhead. I
So
do
maybe
like
we should
the,
do just a quick overview of the 4.
all right. So, well,
Or
there's 5.
However many classifications we
All
came
right.
up with.
So, crackheads. And crackheads are the ones that when you touch a call and then you see them, they pop out, that red, white, and blue, and they're like, here they come. Look at
David
that.
is a great example.
I caught that. And they are like coming right now. They have there's no hesitation. You pretty much can say, get your bow, because here they come. Sunday strollers. Sunday strollers are annoying, but they're workable. You know, they kind of play that game where they look around and they hang out on the edge of the
If
field.
you guys are not watching this one on
And
YouTube, you need to
you
switch.
call and then they look at each other, but they see the decoy. Ooh, we should go over there, and then they talk about it. You know, what do you think? I think I should go. No, I don't. This could be
Because it's
fake.
usually more than one.
Yeah, there's 2 or 3 of them usually. You know, and sometimes there can be. I think the most toms I've ever called in is like 7 in one group. That was
That's-
Merriams.
I don't. Are you talking about with me and you?
No,
'Cause you had like 30.
when was that?
My first turkey.
Oh,
When
that was
finally
kinda
when I
like-
killed him.
Oh, that was a whole flock. That we
Yeah.
haven't got there yet. That's later on. Hold on. No, the
You guys
Sunday.
are also kind of just in the flock.
Yeah, that was like a whole flock. But no, Jim, Brendan, and I had 7 toms come in together,
Fair enough.
and we shot 2 of them. So, and then I should save that one for last. Let's keep them. So the educated bird. That-
Is that what we call them something different, didn't we?
No,
Oh.
we get to him too. We get to the drumstick here in a
I
minute.
thought we called them the scholar or something.
No, I just have educated birds.
Yeah, the
So-
scholar makes sense. I like that.
Yeah, the educated bird
Professor.
is the bird that you think everything is going to go well, and he comes roaring out until he goes, "Oh, I've seen this before," so I'm not going over there. And then gone. The church group. Oh yeah, just like what it sounds like. You know, like, hey, look, there's someone else over there, but there's all of us. There's the choir, there's the preacher, there's the people here, and they're just hanging out and having a lot of fun. And you've got to get in with these folks and get to them, and it can be quite
You really got to
interesting.
gain their trust, you know?
Yeah, well,
Gotta
anytime you
bring
walk,
some bread to communion.
You
yeah,
know?
you walk into a new congregation, you kind of have to
Yeah.
earn your way.
Bring
you
an
know?
offering.
So, and then the last but not least, and this is the most dreaded and hated bird of all the turkeys that exist, and that is the infamous Chickenbird. Oh yeah,
Also known as other words, depending on how aggravated.
you some.
60-yard pin.
Yeah. It's the one that'll make you question your morals.
So the Chickenbird is exactly what it sounds like. He's been beat on by all the other turkeys, but he's got some balls. Like if you could look up through your binoculars, you probably could see 2 little set of testicles hanging down there, because he is not going to run, but he's not leaving. He's not coming. He's just going to circle around you and circle around you. So for those of you that are shotgun hunters, just shoot that son right in the head and kill it. But for us bow hunters,
Even some of them, though, those stay at like 60.
Oh,
Like,
yeah.
Even a shotgun could be a poke.
I don't know. I'm seeing shotguns now. Guys are posting patterns and stuff like that, 60, 70 yards, and they're spraying the out of them.
Yeah.
I'm not. I can't. My
Okay,
little-
so our chicken bird, though.
Chickenbird sucks. But anyhow,
Yes.
so if we talk about these, we'll get into talking about our setups. And part of the setups change sometimes, especially if you kind of know you're going in to hunt a particular style or type of bird like this.
Or like
I
places
think-
that are pressured versus not pressured. Or,
Yeah.
The only one I think that really, really changes your setup or anything is the crackhead. Because I think that people oftentimes are too slow.
Oh yeah, they don't
They
get.
think they have time, and they dilly-dally around. Last year when we went to Wyoming,
Oh, you're talking about if you've heard them before, like answer or something, they're gobbling before you are set up.
I feel like most of if you think of most of your crackheads, they don't come off the roost that way. Like, it's like you found them at later in the morning or midday, and you hit one call. So last year when we were hunting with our buddy John in Wyoming, I mean, he kept saying, the turkeys are all over here. So he kept driving us to these spots. And then we hit one call, and it was right away. And then that's what it was. I think it was like, I was like, tell him, get all the stuff. We're getting all the stuff. And it wasn't 45 seconds later, and he gobbles again on his own.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, shit. And so now John's like, oh, I like that tree. He's like, I think we should move down. I was like, no, sit your ass against that tree and get up, set up. And I ran out with the decoys, put the decoys up, and ran back, and it was like the movies. I don't even know. I like dove behind the tree. And by the time I was diving behind the tree, I saw him. He was already there at 200 yards, and then here he came all right in.
I think it's probably worth noting that the chances of having a crackhead is also dependent on where you're hunting. Like us, we're hunting easterns here in Iowa, and anybody east of us, obviously, are hunting easterns as well. I think you have a much better chance of finding yourself some crackheads when you get into Merriams, and according to David's experiences, as well as, is it Osceolas or Osceolas?
I say Osceola.
Whatever the Florida birds are.
The only place I've heard Osceola is here in Iowa, the town. They call it Osceola instead of Osceola, and I don't know why.
So
in Osceola.
Different breeds affect it a little bit, but you'll still get them with easterns. I just don't feel like I see it quite as much as the Merriams seem like there. There's a lot of crackheads.
There's a lot of crackhead Merriams.
I don't know. I
Or you have a week here until.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think it's timing here. If you have, so the time you run into the most crackheads here is the first 5 days, up until that first weekend of hunting, and then it definitely peters out. But I can think of one that came off the roost. Like I can think of a couple, but one in particular, and that was the first turkey that you ever went with me on to shoot that I shot in the snow, and that turkey was off of the roost before we could even get set up, and it was dark. I mean, if you remember, and I'm like, okay, Warren, we got to sit down right here because he's coming. And he was, blah, blah, and he just freaking came. And matter of fact, the thing I remember most is when I shot him, the first comment out of your mouth was, holy cow, did you see the flame come out of your gun? You know, because it was that dark. Not that it was dark, but it was dark enough that you saw the flame still.
Droopy Butt, he was kind of off the roost.
Yeah, he freaked.
Who do you think was the most possessed turkey you've ever seen? Droopy Butt?
Yeah, because, I mean, we reset the decoy 3 times.
And every time.
And then just let it, so, well, we're talking.
Mr. T, too?
No, it was on Mr. T. So last week you guys heard us talk about how we got into using decoys, or primarily how we got into using a strutting decoy, and that was my taxidermist buddy of mine, Waylon, out in Great Falls, Montana, built me a turkey, built me a strutting tom. And so we were using it as a decoy. And so Warren and Easton and Karen and I climbed in a blind one morning, and I knew this place was notorious for having birds on it, but they had not been there the week before. And that was the one thing that I learned in Montana. So for those of you guys out west, don't be afraid to go back to a spot that didn't have turkeys, because that I found was the second week. So it was like April 22nd or something like that. If you went any time before then, there was no turkeys on that ranch. But then if you waited, they would come back in there. And when they got back in there, for whatever reason, those turkeys were the easiest callable turkeys and they were angry. And they came from a long ways. But anyhow, the one Warren's talking about, Karen is the shooter. So we get set up. It's first thing in the morning, and this bird starts gobbling. And I'm like, all right, we got a good chance, because he's hammering every call I touch. And he hits the freaking ground, and he comes into Mr. T. And I'm thinking, oh, Karen is going to just pummel this turkey, and we're going to be done at 6:10 or something like that. And he freaking comes in, and when he comes in, she can't even get a shot, because he comes in and just pounds on him. And then so he's mounted onto a piece of plywood. The piece of plywood flips over on top, and so she can't shoot through the plywood, and he runs off. And she's like, oh, I don't know what to do. And I'm like, there's nothing you could have done. However, let's just let him get out of sight, and I'm going to crawl out and set the decoy back up. And so I did, and I didn't know if it would work. I mean, like, we had to wait. It took a while. He finally got over, because there was another Tom out there, and he was messing with him. And so then I crawl out, and I get the decoy set back up. touched the, here he comes back, but he's chasing that other turkey this time, and so he chases him, and the other one's trying to get him off his ass, so he runs by our decoy, and then he comes running in and just runs around our decoy, and she doesn't get a shot again, but he did gave it just kung fu punch and knocked my decoy over again.
You put a stake in it.
And so I was like, okay, now we're going to play a serious game. So I go back out and I crawl and set it up. And I was like, all right, Karen, when he comes this time.
A turkey so possessed that runs by chasing another one and takes the time to kung fu punch the other one.
So I was like, you got to be ready this time. And this time when he came in, she shoots him, but she hit him back. And all she did was cut his tail. And what I mean by that, that's where he got his name Droopy Butt, was he would try to strut after she shot at him, and his tail wouldn't go up. It just laid on the ground. He was and like dragging his butt. And I'm like, I don't know what you cut, but you didn't hurt him bad. So anyhow, this is 3 times in the morning. And so these guys were young, and we decided, all right, let's go get some breakfast or lunch or whatever, but we took a break. And then I said, all right, I know where we want to go. We're going to get away from Droopy Butt, see if we can find some other birds. And so we went like 300 or 400 yards down if you remember, there was like a logging road that went down that mountain. And so we set up down there, got to calling, nothing. These two are napping pretty good. And I just happened to look out of the blind. We've been there for like an hour and a half, 2 hours. This is in the afternoon. And I look out and I told Karen, I said, I don't know what that is coming down the road. I think it's a skunk, because it wasn't strutting or anything. It was Droopy Butt and dragging his tail, and it just looked weird. Anyhow, he comes over, he gets even. I hit another call, and he does gobble, and so now she knows he's coming. I'm like, I cannot believe we're going to get a 4th shot at the same turkey on the same day. And he's like 15 yards away, and he sees the decoy, turns, and here he comes, and I'm like, this is like perfect. Until he got about 5 feet from that decoy, and he remembered what the hell was going on. He was like, oh, I've seen this before, and just turned around and hauled ass.
Took him long enough.
Yeah, but
imagine being another turkey around having to deal with that turkey.
Oh, it'd be annoying as crap.
It's like a Mike Tyson bird, but there's just absolutely zero self-control. Just chases you all the time.
Wants to fight everything.
The whole thing is, if you can kill that turkey, a lot of times, and this goes especially for Eastern guys, if you have more turkeys around, you kill that turkey and you would find a whole bunch more birds in your area, because he is beat on everyone and everyone's scared to death. You know, yeah. But
everybody was kung fu fighting.
But that farm, that ranch, I don't know what it was. It was those turkeys, because there was another one that I probably heard. I would say that bird had to have gobbled over 500 times. It was freaking nonstop. It was. I was like, how's he even? And he wasn't gobbling at me. He was gobbling at me. He would just gobble until he finally came in and we shot him.
Okay, this might be easy, but new hunter, how do you identify the crackhead? And let's just say that we're going to say, for instance, this is not off the roost, because in that example, they would already be set up and it doesn't really matter. So let's say that they are trying to find a new spot, or there's late in the morning or whatever.
Or something.
Yeah, how do they know if it's a crackhead?
Unset
Some turkeys will gobble on the first time, and it doesn't mean anything.
So you are not set up yet. You are trying to find more birds.
Well, but let's back, because the first thing that I would tell you is, if you can find that bird that is hammering the evening before, probably a crackhead.
Or a chickenbird, I feel like.
I
seem like they gobble a lot.
I hate birds that gobble over excessively.
Yeah, but I would, birds that I've had gobbling a lot the evening before, and I'm saying, like, you throw anything out there, and don't throw turkey calls at them when they're roosted in the evening. I don't throw turkey calls. But what I'm saying, if they're just sitting up there.
Okay, but we're saying they don't.
Okay.
They don't find them before. They are in a new spot trying to find birds.
Okay.
And I'm a new hunter.
How do I know I got a crackhead on my hands?
Do I need to set up, or do I need to be trying to get closer?
Typically, I would tell you got a couple minutes from the time you hear the first gobble, kind of like, and that one would be distance. I mean, if he's 300 yards away when he answers the first time, you got a little time. They're not going to sprint, but not all the time. I'm not saying it can't ever happen, but 9 times out of 10, you got a little time. Number 2, I would say is...
What is a little time? Is that 10 minutes? Is that 3?
Well, just don't sit there calling.
Mine is a few minutes. Like, and that's a long time.
Especially if you're popping up a blind and decoys and stuff, you better get your ass on it.
Yeah, and that's the one thing that I still tell people is before you start blowing turkey calls, especially if you're packing a blind, you're gonna be bow hunting. You want to be pretty close to set up before you do it, and that kind of sucks because you could get everything set out, and then you heard a bird gobble, but then the next time he gobbles, he's further away. You got to pack everything back up, and you want to move around and get in front of him or whatever. So I'm looking for a bird though. If I get a turkey that gobbles at me, okay, and we're in the morning or whatever, we're looking for a bird, and he answers me, and I give him, let's say, a minute to kind of see. Especially a lot of times what happens is when you hear that first gobble, especially if there's two of you, pinpointing exactly where did I hear that? Because you weren't expecting it, or you were, but you still don't know exactly where it came from. So it's like, okay, I think it's right there. Okay, so I might want to try to get him to gobble one more time. If he gobbles on his own, there's a good chance you might be looking at a crackhead here because he's already like trying to figure out where she is immediately. So that second gobble can be my trigger that, okay, we got one working here. But typically, I can't identify a crackhead until they show up.
Well, let me ask you this question though, because I think maybe this will help you a little bit. So I'm a new guy, and I hit the call, and immediately hammers.
Mm-hmm.
Now I give him a minute or so, and decide, okay, I'm gonna try him again, and I hit a call again, and he doesn't answer. What does that mean?
That can mean one of two options. Yeah, that can mean one of two things. One, I'm scared to death because he's coming.
He's either on his way.
He didn't hear me call. Or number two, okay, we're going to be able to. We got a bird. We're going to work here. He's not. He's going to be more like a Sunday stroller. He's going. We're going to have a chance to work this and have him come in.
Okay, so in that instance, then what would I do? Set up just in case?
I probably would. The going dark on me. Especially if he answered me immediately. Now, there's a difference between two. Let's just say you throw out a couple hen yelps. There's a few seconds in between there. Okay, we got that bird doesn't like spook me like, oh boy, here he comes. Before I can even finish, ooh, wait a minute. I mean, he was looking for something.
Yeah.
So that's what that would change just and I mean it's seconds.
Which it's so weird too. I feel like the more I think about it, like there's a lot of times where we'll go into somewhere and you'll get one that will hit on the very first call, and then he just doesn't do anything.
Yeah,
I wonder why that is.
Well, I think that's.
I mean, usually they seem to have hens, those ones.
Yes, and that's what he's doing is he hears another hen out there. Come on over.
Yeah, as I said, I think
just
my
come on over.
He's only answering to give it a shot. Maybe if he gobbles to let her know that he's down there, she'll come over.
Okay.
Dad did explain that really well. That is the whole process of turkey hunting. We're all trying to get a tom to come to us and everything. When in all reality, how they naturally operate is the hens are supposed to go to the toms.
Yep.
So that would make sense that they gobble once and hey, hopefully he gets an extra. If he doesn't care, which is why you can't get him to freaking call again.
Yep. Okay, so we have crackhead situation. It's a bird that as soon as you hit a call, he hammers back. And in order to get ready for that, we're going to set up regardless because we don't know if he's coming right this minute or not. Yep. And if he's not, it's okay.
Well, and think of it this way. Maybe it's a little more work on your part throughout the morning that you set up a few times and don't get a shot. I would rather be set up in case one does pop in on me. I'll guarantee you if you turkey hunt long enough, we've all walked away from a turkey that was coming. Yeah. It just happened. And especially the ones that you're talking to another tom that's gobbling and maybe he's not coming and there's a bird out here that's not saying a word because you got this crackhead over here, but he's got a hen with him, so he won't leave the live hen. He's trying to maybe even convince her to come with him. But while he's doing that, this dude over here that's been beat on, but not beat on so bad that he ain't willing to come in, is coming silently. And you don't know that, so you maneuver on the one that's gobbling and you walked away from a turkey.
So how long should I give him? If I think it's a crackhead, I set up, and now I'm just nothing. How long should I wait just in case before I move again?
See, and that to me, that's a time. That's a case-by-case scenario thing, because I'm a time guy. And if you'd asked me that 10 years ago, I'd have said 35, 40 minutes, give them a little bit of time to get there.
Shoot,
now,
I was thinking 15.
Yeah. I was
like
going to give you a
15.
time, but I was like, that don't mean I'm following that.
If he's a crackhead, he'll be there by then. Otherwise, we're moving on.
See, now I might sit there for 2.5, 3 hours.
Holy, yeah.
Because I've found that just once I make contact with them and they know where I'm at, I'm confident enough that I can convince them that they're going to want to come back to that spot.
Without overcalling.
I mean, just once. Matter of fact, sometimes you don't need to call at all anymore for a while. And that's that's a little, I don't want to say it's a trick, but that is something. Going silent on turkeys can do you some favors.
That right there, I think, is a good reason as to why you should do your scouting before, because if you are going to be sitting there for 2.5, 3 hours, if you're in a brand new spot, you have no idea where they like to roost. You don't have any idea where they came from a roost or anything. It's probably going to be pretty hard for you to just trust yourself, especially if you're new, to do that. Versus if you have done your scouting, you know where they like to. They may not be that close to where you've seen them multiple times, where they're calling to you or something, but you're sitting where you've seen them every other day or whatever. That's going to give me a lot more confidence that turkeys may not be there every single time, but they're pretty habitual as far as coming back and forth or going to other places. So you may sit there with confidence of 2.5, 3 hours.
100%.
It doesn't matter if I know that they're there every day, though. I'm not sitting for 2.5, 3 hours.
Not me either.
But Dad kills the crap out of them by waiting. It's unreal.
Okay, so crackhead, I think that we can kind of conclude the crackhead. Most of the time, the crackhead should be the most simple, straightforward bird you can have. He's going to answer every call. He's going to come quick, and when he sees the decoys, he's going to come right into the decoys, and he's going to piss pound your decoys, and you're going to get a shot.
One of the biggest things, when you can see this bird, let's just say you can see a couple 100 yards, okay, or 100 yards even. If you see that bird duck under a fence without checking up hardly, like he's in a strut on one side of the fence, he ducks underneath the fence, game on, you got seconds now. He's coming. And then they do the booby bubble, where they start the booby bouncing, when they start running at you and they look like they need arms because they're just coming like this and it's shaking. And
no, you need to post the Talladega one again of the 3 doing that.
Yeah.
From Nebraska. Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Shake and bake, baby.
Yeah, no, there would have been a perfect example. Warren just brought up one that I remembered. That was 2 years ago, I think, with Marty. And absolutely perfect example of crackheads. We touched the call. We saw them. They were in a little strip. We touched a call. They freaking gobbled one time and popped out of the trees on the other side, saw the decoys, and now it was a race to see who could get to the decoy first.
They were hauling.
Yeah.
Those ones are the fun ones. I love crackheads.
Everyone likes that because it works so well. All right, which one's next?
All the boring ones.
All the boring ones. I think you saved the Chickenbird for last. Sunday strollers, though, man. Sunday strollers are, for bow hunters, these are the best turkeys. And what I mean by that is crackheads can be a problem to get a shot at with a bow because they come in and they're throttling a decoy, and that's where what you were talking about, Easton, is the Osceolas, however you want to say it. They were tough because Osceolas are, and people had told me that they are very aggressive when they see another decoy and just come in and just freak out. And so we had decoys spinning around on the stake and then boom, they're gone, but when they do that, it can be tough to get a shot with a bow primarily. With a shotgun, you should, moment they give you a second, put it on that head and let her rip. But the Sunday strollers are the ones that come in and take their time, and they're like forcing their issue, and they get to your decoy. They might brush up against it. They may not even get to the decoy. They may stay 3-4 yards away, trying to position themselves between the hen and the decoy, or in the tom.
Does a Sunday stroller usually have hens or not?
Either or.
Crackheads, though, we would say, I would think we'd say pretty much they almost never have hens. 9
times out of 10, crackheads are usually by themselves. No hen with them. Sunday strollers, I would say it's probably 50-50. They could be tagging a hen along with them. And I've seen the toms leading and hens follow. I've also seen the hens come first. And that's a whole nother thing that we probably haven't covered yet, is when you know you have hens with a tom, sometimes you quit calling to the tom and start calling to the hen
Mm-hmm.
and talk to them.
So your Sunday stroller is still going to come. Maybe going to answer periodically or every time still, you think? Or
They could be worked up they may answer every time, but they won't cover the ground like your crackhead does. You'll notice, he's like 50 yards closer, or maybe they're even, and I love it when a bird like goes around me or something, because that tells me they're really moving and trying to come in. I like that. I like to know that, okay, or I'm 100% positive that they went from one spot to the next spot between gobbles. I don't like it when I'm like, because sometimes they can gobble.
Same spot.
Yeah, they could gobble away from you, and then they turn around and face you, and you think, oh, here he comes. And he didn't move at all. He might have moved a few feet, but he didn't move very far. So when they go from here, though, over to here, they're looking. They're making a move here, and they're hopefully coming toward me.
Yep. But basically, biggest difference with them is could have hens in probably maybe hour plus to get them in, opposed to a crackhead where you're 15 minutes or less.
Yeah, I don't know if I'd put a time on it. I mean, I've had them come even in 30 minutes seems like a long time, when, especially going from 200 yards to 2 yards. I mean, that can seem like for eternity, but they're coming the whole time.
The only thing I would say with those is you do have to kind of keep them entertained.
Yep.
You don't want to overcall, but at the same time, if you don't call enough, they will get distracted and be like, whatever, and lose interest and move on.
And the other one that I would say that really comes into a huge factor with these guys, movement in your decoys.
Mm-hmm.
They get stuck out there at 80, 100 yards. They're kind of thinking about it. And, man, that decoy turns, whether you're doing it with the string we talked about or it's legal where you're doing it and it's remote control, and that decoy turns, and then they come another 10, 15 yards, turn it one more time. Oh, yeah, we're going in here now.
Yep.
So that, in my opinion, they're the best ones. That's my favorite. I mean, because I know I have time, but that's with me bow hunting them too.
Well, I'll make a deal with you this year. I'll give you all my Sunday strollers,
and you can have
give
all
me all your crackheads.
Okay, I hear you. Speaking of which, when we get to this next one that we're going to talk about, we need to go over and clear our spot where you shot that turkey on the fence. The Sunday choir, we've talked about that.
We should just lit the fire there.
Yeah, no kidding.
Well, it's like some that multi-floor rows. So we need to cut out there and make us, and we're going to film this. I dreamed about this. I woke up the other night and was like, we need to go do that. And
how did we cut it last year?
I just cut.
Cut right where the blind was.
Yeah. Whack it though?
No, just where
it's
the blind
too thick to do that, I think.
No, we found a little opening that was probably 6 or 8 feet. I'd like to make it 6 or 8 yards. If it was just the size of this room, if you just had a little
make
spot.
It like 20, 30 yards.
No, we don't need it that big. And then
nice.
What I want to do is take the bottom wire and pull it up and tie it up so they got an easy place to get under the fence.
Yep.
And then we'll have created a turkey trap.
Maybe we should burn it too.
Well, we can see what's
terrifying, but yeah, I'm in.
It's
Shut
a
up,
good.
Nick. You light the neighbor's trailer on fire one time, everybody thinks you don't know what you're doing.
All right, do we want to go on to educated birds?
Sure.
Yeah.
So
they're probably the easiest one. Well, besides the groups, the church choir, they're probably the easiest to identify.
Educated are going to be quick. I mean, they're going to be the hardest to identify until they're visible.
Yeah.
Because they sound and act like they're coming and they're all fired up and they come roaring through the timber and pop out in the field. And when they pop out in the field, that's when, oh no.
I think a lot of times though they aren't as fired up even before they get there. It's like they're always hesitant sometimes.
Well, I wonder, do you have two classifications of educated birds? I think you could absolutely say that you have one level where they see the decoy in a blind.
Ooh, they're gone.
And they lose their mind.
Yeah. Yep.
That all rhymes so well. And see decoy in a blind.
What's up, Am? How you doing?
Yeah.
But then rabbit.
I would think, and you would be more, or maybe you too from hunting in Alabama. It seems like that there's a second level of them to where they get to the point that even calling, they're pretty educated too.
Oh yeah.
Yep.
So I guess my first question would be, how do you know which one you're dealing with?
The only difference is going to be when they show up and they run.
Well, I feel like
versus the one that's not answering you or is extremely difficult to get them to answer anything at all.
okay, so let's just say we have a level 1 educated bird, which is just blinds and decoys.
Okay.
And so we have a level 2 educated bird that is also educated to calls. Is level 1 bird still killable? And we'll say with a bow or shotgun.
I think he is without, but you not the setup you have right there. you got to be like nothing.
So you
Here,
gotta call him in.
here's
The
yeah.
only way I've figured that one out is calling them in tighter quarters with no decoy or anything.
So again, that goes back to scouting. I got an area that I know that he likes to be in, right? And I now know this bird is an educated bird. I'm brushing the blind in, meaning I'm hiding the
You're
blind.
still using the blind, though.
I'm still using the blind if I'm still bow hunting.
Okay.
So I'm brushing my blind in. I back into the trees, and the only decoy that I have out is a lone hen. And what I'm saying is, and possibly even just the laydown hen. I'm just doing because all I'm looking to do is trying to get him here from a call. He looks and he doesn't see a decoy. He doesn't see any turkeys at all, which is kind of what I think he's looking for. Other than I haven't tried it yet, but I'm thinking that you could possibly get away with a feeding hen. If you had a feeding hen, and I'm saying like not out in a wide open field, she's going to be in the brush where you can't see her very well. And then, but the way I've done it is the laydown hen, and the laydown hen is just there so that when he's got to be within like 30 yards already. And so anyhow, I shot one at like 17 yards, and it was when he finally saw the laydown hen, he went into a strut for just a second, which was what I needed so that I could get a good shot at him.
Which is a super long shot in comparison.
Normally we're shooting 8-9 yards or 7.
He was just looking for calls or what?
He just came looking for the calls, and cut down on my calling because I call a lot. I mean, if anyone hunts with me, everyone knows I call too much.
Okay, so shotgun. So we're saying the level. Is that rain?
I think somebody in the driveway.
Level 1 bird is definitely killable still. That's what we're saying.
Yeah,
It's just not going to be necessarily fun and
Not
take a
be
little
easy.
more work. Yeah, with a shotgun, probably quite killable. I would feel like still, because you
I
could.
still think you got to totally switch your setup.
I'm kind of thinking no setup. You're just calling him in, and you're not. And when
Yeah,
he
let
is
him
getting
look
like
for it.
within 100 yards, I'm not really going to be calling much or very, very light. Just trying to guide him roughly in my direction. Okay.
the one thing that you can add to that scenario is another like two people, like the two, and that caller starts walking away, and just call him through. You're basically elk hunting them now, and that can work tremendously because now someone can keep calling, keeps his interest, but he thinks it's leaving and it's moving. So it's like, well, this isn't what I've normally. I mean, if it was a setup here, everything would just be stagnant here.
Okay. So level 2 bird, where he's educated to calling. Can you throw different types of calls at him that he maybe hasn't heard? Is this bird basically unkillable? Is there anything I can do with this one? I feel like guys on the east side of the nation would have to deal with this more than maybe your Midwest guys or your West guys for sure.
Right time, right place. That's my opinion on him.
But is that still callable, or is that just like
if you can get him in the right mood, very little. But I think they're the hardest one out of them all.
So, couple things. This is where varying your calls really comes. So, like, let's just say that you're like me. I'm a diaphragm guy, right? I'm using diaphragm call 99% of the time. Most of your buddies out there that are, if you got a lot of diehard turkey hunters, are using a diaphragm call. This is where I come in and I throw a box call at him, a couple yelps. Maybe he gobbles at a distance because he still is going to answer a real hen. And then you got to shut up. And then you got to sit there and not do anything. And maybe it's 30 minutes. He still hasn't shown up. You may hit one more yelp with the box call and shut up. You're just trying to let him pinpoint where you are to a point, but not to the point where he knows exactly what tree. They're killable. Bushy Beard was not only decoys and a blind, but he was also a call.
Well, that was my question with him was going to be, what classification would you say he was? Because was his necessarily an education problem, or he just didn't care?
No. Once he saw the decoy that day, I mean, when he saw the decoy and blind, he ran. Then the next time I was sitting there with just the blind, he popped out, he saw, and he left.
So you think we educated him before?
I definitely think I did.
At least
Did he
admits
come
it.
like
I think-
in years previous?
Yeah,
though?
I don't know if the year before, because I had killed 2 birds right there the year before. I don't know if he was one of the group, and he kind of knew what was going on. I didn't know that he was fired
He was
up
always
the
on
first
his
time.
own though, too, wasn't he? Never with hens.
Never with hens.
So does that make him also
A chicken bird.
bird?
I think he was a chicken bird as well.
Oh, okay. So that's got to be the worst. An
Yeah.
educated chicken bird.
Oh, it's
That's hell.
well, and so for those of you that I'll just abbreviate the story. Bushy Beard was a turkey that, as I just mentioned, wouldn't come to a decoy, wouldn't come to anything. I set up a blind. Karen and I got in the blind at 6:30 in the morning one morning, not at daylight, because he's never there. He never flew down off the roost and came there. I was like, we got time. However, it might be all day. It could be a lot, because I would get, and the only reason I knew he was still coming there, because I can't see this field from the road, is I had a trail camera sitting there. And when I would check the camera, every day he was there at some point. But it was varying, 3 o'clock, noon, 11 o'clock, 6 o'clock. And so we just, and I had left, finally I left a blind there. And now I was getting pictures of him, and he was walking in front of the blind. So I was like, okay, the blind is now okay. And so anyhow, we got in there at 6:30. At 7:15 that evening.
You got in at 6:30 in the morning.
And at 7:15 in the evening, as we were packing up, she had read 2 books. I look out, and he's there. And he's just pecking around, walking around. He's not strutting or not and doing anything, because I have not made a call. We have no decoy. I have not called all day. We didn't do anything but just look out the window. And he was there. And I shot him at 8 yards, 7 yards.
I think I had to cut a toe off by that point.
Why a toe?
Something to do.
Yeah, no thanks. You ain't catching me doing that for a
Well,
bird.
that bird sucked. All right, let's talk about the church group though. Because can be the guys out west deal with this more than the guys back east deal with, because we're talking a flock of turkeys. And why I say that is, especially March 25th is the opener for Nebraska that still has an early archery season, but we saw it some in Montana. But when you're talking about lots of turkeys, we just did have it happen. Was that last year or 2 years ago? That was 2 years ago, wasn't it? When the ones we're talking about fixing the fence there to get them, where you shot the one in the head.
Yeah,
Yep.
but that was all kinds
was
of
2 years
different
ago.
groups, it seemed like.
What do you mean?
Oh, wait, you're not talking about last year?
It was 2 years ago.
2 years ago
I
when
was
he
thinking
shot
about
that.
when you guys were hunting there, and there was, if you weren't paying attention, you'd think it's just a huge flock spread out, but it was like 7, 8 different groups. They were all in one place when you guys killed them that day. The video shows literally spread out toms all across this freaking thing, turkeys everywhere.
Yeah, it was one flock.
It was pretty
They
much
just were kinda
one
breaking up,
big
yeah.
flock. They were
Yeah.
just kind of separating and going their different ways. But so, for instance, 6, 7 toms, 5 toms, I don't know. The most, I think, like Easton's talking about, there was 20, almost 30, probably 30 toms in the group that when you shot yours. But you don't see that very often. But when you do see that, they are callable. And what I found is you have to overcall, meaning you just crank calling. You got to sound like you are another flock. And there's just so much chaos going on over there that they finally get disinterested in the flock that they're in, and 1 or 2 of them will break off and come to the flock you're in.
If not all of them.
If not all of them. But in the case, I'll use Warren specifically, he was the only one that truly broke off and said, I'm going to go over there. But they had to have passed by us, 3 or 4 times at 50, 60 yards and wouldn't commit.
I think they were a little further out than that.
Yeah, maybe 100.
Yeah. But yes, I mean,
They saw us. They knew that we were over there. And again, now we had movement in the decoy. That was one of the biggest things that I was like, okay, I know that they're seeing this. And that can be something too. Calling when you know they're looking and moving a decoy is key, to give them that realism. Okay, we know he knows everything is right. But if there's a time to overcall, it would be when you're dealing with flocks.
Yeah.
That is also probably the number one to be patient with.
Absolutely.
Oh my gosh. Joey's bird that you called in for him was
Oh, yeah, that was
painful. And that one was only 1 tom with 7 hens or something like that. But
that
he
was
wouldn't
what,
do anything.
3 hours?
Yeah, 3 hours we sat there.
But you guys stand out because there's so many of them that if you're not going heavy, they just don't pay any attention to you.
Okay, but and I think what you're going to
That's probably a much more common thing for people to run into is like Joey's situation, where we had 1 tom with 7 hens. We knew where they were at, and you just said, No, we're just going to sit here.
Well, okay, but I would go back to scouting. That's what I mean, or like you said earlier, if I know the area and you guys had hunted there and you knew those turkeys like to come there, and I had never hunted there, and I was like, okay, and fortunately the bird was on the neighbors, so we couldn't maneuver.
Yeah.
Because I probably would have tried to cut the distance and say, let's try to get closer. And I would bet you money, had we done that, we would not have killed that turkey. We would have been trying to call him to somewhere he didn't want to go. Mm-hmm. And he already had hens, and the hens would be the ones that wouldn't go. So instead, we just set up. But he would answer me enough that I'm like, okay, I know where they're at. You guys had convinced me enough that they like to be in this cornfield that we were right down on the edge of it. Let's just wait him out. I think once he starts to head this way, I can get him to make a maneuver and come over 60, 80, 100 yards or whatever it was across that creek. And that's what we did. And we just banked up, we just like said, we're all in. Part of it helped us that he was on the neighbors and that we couldn't maneuver on him. Alyssa's the one, that came all the way across that cornfield. Now that one was not
Which one?
The one on early in the morning.
It was just him, though, wasn't it?
It was just him, yeah. But my point is, I'm just saying, I knew that bird. I knew where he wanted to be, and that helps when you know that. So by
Talk
far.
a little bit. Well, I think that makes sense too. Talk a little bit about what they'll do like in the morning until later morning.
So just so you guys understand what the normal turkey wants to do, they pitch down, and Nick and I had one morning, we got underneath a whole flock, and I think it was 7 or 8 toms, something like that, pitched down out of we had no idea they were there, and they pitched down out of the trees, and now I'm thinking we've screwed up, because I'm thinking he's going to come to the decoy right now, and I'm not going to be able to shoot him because it's too dark, and we won't be able to get it on video. And then nobody comes, and they all do their thing. So we actually physically got to watch what they're doing, and what they're doing is they're gobbling every once in a while. Hens pitch down, hens all come around. One tom starts doing all the breeding. All the other ones aren't going anywhere. You can call all you want to those birds. If you couldn't have seen them, you would have known they were there. But even for a while there, they quit. They quit gobbling. And so if you're sitting off 150 yards away and you can't see them, you're going, they left. They didn't leave. They're just doing their thing. And he's breeding. They're walking around. And so what ends up happening is we walk away from him. But if you'll hold tight, a lot of times what ends up happening, he gets done breeding that hen. That hen takes off. Some of the ones that don't get bred start to venture off. But it takes, I'm going to say, hour and a half for those hens to start to like, okay, I'm going to start feeding off toward a nest. And all of a sudden he looks around and either he's got no hens left or he's got 1 or 2, or some of the other toms now have lost interest and they start to wander off. And then now you are that new caller, or they've heard you before and you're not calling now, they gobble on their own and they're like, where'd you go? And then all of a sudden you touch a call and now they turn into a crackhead because they're like, wait a minute, they're still there. Let me catch up. And so that's what they're doing first thing in the morning, is they are servicing those hens, and then those hens got to work their way off. And I mean, I have seen multiple occasions where you go from that, they're not a chicken bird, they're just doing their normal thing. They're a crackhead, but they're a crackhead with they got their crack.
Right.
They got that hen there, and so right now they're just, yeah, man, I can't see nothing.
Why would they go get a cracked pebble when they got a cracked rock?
Right. Yeah, they got what they need right now. You're waiting for them to not have what they need.
Yeah, but explain that, because it sounds like the hens just kind of go do what they want. What the hens are going to
nest.
Yes.
Yeah, they're going to
lay
eggs.
Actually separating.
Yes.
And then the
and
toms are left alone, and if they do hear another hen out, maybe she's not there yet.
And those hens, when they leave, they'll leave until the afternoon.
Yeah, that is a huge tip.
Yes.
That is something big that you've taught me, that is, when they separate, that's your best time.
So for that guy that can't go, like you work shift work and you don't get off till 8 o'clock in the morning or 7 o'clock, think, I can't go turkey hunting. Man, going turkey hunting at 9:30, 10 o'clock.
Almost better.
I mean, the
only difference is trying to find them.
You don't know where they are, but if you've done your scouting, you took a couple weekends before the season and you kind of figured out where they are. Man, go to that spot at 8:30 in the morning, touch a call, blah, 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 and your crackhead hunt is over in 15 minutes. So without ever getting up early, Easton was notorious there for a while. He was like, yeah, I don't think I'm going to ever hunt before sunrise, on this wait. So, but yeah, so letting their natural things go on. And I think we talked about this in the last podcast. And it was funny because me and Nick were talking about it the other day. And then when we were driving around the block, I said, look what time it is, Nick, because we just saw 3 toms cross the road going on into a field. And it was 5:27 or something like that. They have a loafing time or take a break time or whatever you want to call it. And it is not until like 1 or 2 in the afternoon until about 4 or 5 o'clock. But I would love to go through Eddie Salter and Will Primos, Toxie Hayes, all these guys that have killed hundreds and hundreds of turkeys. I'll bet you if you laid it all on a time scale, that 2 o'clock to 5 o'clock would be the time that would be the absolute worst. Not that they haven't killed some there, because there's always that oddball. But the majority, I'll guarantee you, is from 1 o'clock in the afternoon back to in the morning, or in the afternoon after 5 o'clock.
That was the most confusing way you could have done time.
Sorry.
From morning till 1 o'clock.
Till 1 o'clock.
And then stop, and then 5 o'clock and on.
Yes.
You think loafing time takes till 5?
Yeah. I don't know why 5 o'clock. I want to be set up at 3:30 or 4 because they might gobble once or twice just to let me know that they're there, but they don't come out from underneath that bush or get out of the hole that they've been in or whatever it is that they're doing. Because they're not doing anything. I've seen them. I've been able to physically watch them. Montana was great for that. You see them go get underneath the cedar, and they just dust. And then they'd sit there, and they might strut, but they would not leave for hours.
Yeah.
Just stand there.
I felt like it was always like 11:30 to 3-ish.
Yeah.
You would probably be already eating breakfast by 10, so.
Yeah, it's a good chance.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I extend it a little because I think that the heart of it is like 1 to 4, and then 5 o'clock is 5 o'clock's my time, because the bad thing is you only got this small window. You guys have a rare situation where the two of you called in those birds right before they went into roost.
That was nuts.
4.
Yeah, and I've had it happen once or twice, but very rarely.
We didn't just call them in. We gave them extra dose of crackheadness. It came freaking hauling.
Yeah.
Came past their roost.
Yeah.
I've never, ever seen other than those 4 birds do that, ever.
All right, and then the last, we haven't talked about the Chickenbird, have we?
We've mentioned it.
Yeah, we've kind of touched on them, but we haven't dove into them.
It's the easiest one, really, to
identify. But he's the worst.
He's a pain in the butt.
Worst.
Yeah, because he's going to gobble. He's going to act like a crackhead. He's going to act like church choir group. He'll be the one that when you look out there and you're glassing with your binoculars and there's 20 turkeys out there, or 10 turkeys or whatever, he's the one to the far right or the far left. He's not in the flock. And he's the one that the other big Tom that is running the show is always facing. And he just keeps him at bay, and he just walks around the whole edge, and he gobbles, and he struts around, and he's just doing anything he can to pull one hen away from that. And that becomes how he deals with everything, is he'll show up on the scene and try to get you to come to him. But you don't know that.
Invisible wall.
Yeah, and he is just annoying as crap.
And at some point or another, just cut your losses. Stop wasting your good calls and just let him go and go to the next spot.
Well, that's the thing that sucks about him, too, is
they like to hang
he's
around.
He's going to waste your time.
Yeah.
And there's nothing you can do about it because you're going to set up on somewhere and there's no flock, and he's going to answer, he's going to show up, and you're going to think, oh, yeah, here we go. And then he's going to start strutting, and it's like, I'd say, typically 60 to – they'll get really brave every once in a while and make it to like 40.
Yeah.
But I feel like 40 is the line.
The barrier.
They aren't coming any closer than that, and he'll strut all over, and you're thinking, just got to keep working him. He's going to break. He ain't going to do it. He's going to just
very rarely.
I do feel like we had one somewhere where we were pretty sure he was a Chickenbird, and then is what he ended up doing was coming all the way around the blind and like putting the blind between him and the hen decoys or the tom to protect himself. You remember that?
Yeah,
he was like rubbing up against the blind.
Yeah, I've seen that happen twice. The one that I'm thinking of, though, I
can't remember if we
think you
killed
were
it,
there.
though.
Was Brock? Were you with me when that? Because the one that
The one I was with Jim in Kalispell. He was going he was so close to the blind we couldn't shoot him.
Yeah. I
Joey's first bird with a bow was the first morning we called him in was an hour and a half at 40 yards. Him and his buddy, which I didn't think was a Chickenbird. I thought that they just wouldn't freaking commit. But I finally got him to come in, and he shot him and it didn't hurt him at all. Left. Next morning we come back. He shoots the same bird, but he did like what you're talking about. He didn't make a sound. It was right off the roost. Did not make a sound or anything. Came right to our back of our blind. And the only reason I knew he was there is because I heard him drumming. And then I told Joey, I said, "Oh, I think we got something right here." And it was like he was waiting to peek. And when he peeked around the blind and saw the decoys, and they were 10 yards away, then freaking came hauling butt, and Joey shot him right there again. So it was like he kind of acted like that, where he didn't want to just come directly in. And then the next morning when he does come in, he's hiding the whole time until he gets there.
I would love to know what's going through their head, because I swear there's a confidence thing going on with the turkey. He's constantly telling him, I don't know.
Dad's narration. We need to get some turkeys doing something and have him narrate it.
I don't know about oh, what the hell? And then just freaking freak out, and then, I got away with that one. Because the one that I'm thinking of, though, is the birds that I'm talking about that I watched loaf. The first time that I physically witnessed it. And that was, we had a flock of birds. We got this bird to come to Mr. T. I mean, he puts on a heck of a show. He comes right into it. I shoot him. We kill this turkey. There's a Chickenbird in the bunch. Well, now the Chickenbird realizes that he's gone, so he's going to try to take over. The problem is there's 4 or 5 Jakes in the group. And those 4 or 5 Jakes also think they're going to take over. So when this Chickenbird starts to move closer to the flock, because I killed the lead Tom, the Jakes are like, no, we're not having it. But he isn't sure what to do at this moment. So they all went down to underneath those trees, and then we watched them just not do anything. And I couldn't believe it, because there's been like a major fight going on all morning with the 4 or 5 Jakes and that one Tom. So we sat there because we could see them, and we were set up 250 yards away, and they couldn't see the decoys because of the sagebrush. It was like 3 foot tall, but we could see the turkeys. Finally at 5 o'clock, they come out from underneath the bushes. And who's leading is the Chickenbird, because the Jakes are between him and the hens, and they're pushing him. And I'm like, okay, he is not getting into that flock. We're not going to be able to kill this Chickenbird. And he comes all the way up till he sees our because he hears me calling, and he keeps coming. And now he's the first on the scene. He's probably 20 yards from the decoys, but he won't go over to the decoys because now he's wedged between the Jakes and the new Tom he sees at full strut. And he's like, what do I do? So he comes over, and he's behind the blind. Brock is asking me if he can grab him. And I'm like, he's right here. Like, he's looking through the crack in the door of the blind. And I was like, I don't, you're never going to reach your hand out there and grab him. He's like, he's right here. And the Jakes come up and get in between. And he's like, this bird has no idea, but he's like peeking around the blind, like looking like, and so finally I'm like, Brock has never killed a turkey. So I'm like, just shoot one of the, and so he shoots one of the Jakes instead. But he literally asked me if he could grab it.
That'd have been like a cartoon. Could you imagine just a hand coming out of the wall and grabbing that turkey and then boom,
can you imagine if he had sucked that sucker into the blind with us? It'd have been freaking
mayhem.
Goat roping at its finest.
I feel like I've seen one time where it was like one Tom versus 4 Jakes or something, and he beat the shit out of them. And ran them
they
off.
have the right mentality.
I think me and you, and I think that was another spot in Nebraska. And he chased, because they ran
unbelievable.
by.
Like, I almost felt, I was like, maybe that one just could get to live, because he's a badass.
Yeah, he was chasing the Jakes, running the Jake. Because I want to say that was the morning I was trying to head shoot a turkey for the first time.
Okay.
I think that's because I recall one, if we're talking about the same one, but it was one Tom and there was 4 or 5 Jakes.
Yeah, it was,
and he chased them all over the place.
Yep, never even gave him a chance.
Nope, and he was all over them, which is rare. You don't see that very often. Usually the Jakes go like rogue on you.
He's got the numbers too.
Droopy butt could take him.
Yeah, I don't think. Well, you notice, like, if you notice this too, though, and some of this stuff, guys, as we're talking about this, makes me think about it. So then I write it down in my phone so that I'll remember. Crackheads don't ever have Jakes around.
No.
You know,
Right, because they beat him up.
I think
I
that
would think they beat him up.
yeah, they can take them on, and so that they don't deal with them.
Or they're just like the guy who's like, they may lose, but they're dumb enough. They're just going to keep going.
Yeah. But and so that's something to make sure that you pay attention to. If you got a bird working or coming and you think you can get a shot, but you're trying to get a better shot and you hear some jake show up or you see him coming out of the corner of your eye, you got seconds because he's going to bolt. I mean, they're going to get to a certain point. They won't get all the way to him. It's almost like they're like a magnet. When they get to a certain point, it pushes them and they just out of here.
Yeah.
You know, no parts of it. And so that's one thing to keep in mind, like what we're going to deal with this year. And this is a great thing, a bad thing. Great thing is we got lots of jakes, it seems like, around this year, which is going to make killing toms harder. However, it means we're going to have a better population of toms hopefully next year.
We had a lot of jakes last year, too.
I've never seen this many around my place.
You had 17 the year before in one group.
No, not last year. Maybe a couple
Not
years
last
ago,
year,
yes.
The year before, you had 17.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
so
the other day there was 16, so
yeah, so we're right back. We'll be golden.
it's all good.
It's all good in the hood. That gives us some room to kill a jake or two.
No, we're not shooting the jakes, you sure?
That make you mad enough.
Well,
All right, Warren.
we need to get these guys to send in. I still have yet to kill one. None of us have. I think. What's the biggest spur we've killed?
I
in
think
my
we've had a
book.
few that have been an inch and a half.
No, I had the one that I had mounted.
Well, that
was
one
an
that
inch and
Alyssa-
3/4.
The one Alyssa, that first one that she shot was like might have been an inch and 5 or.
Give me a
6.
2-inch hook.
That's what I'm saying. I've seen them on people's pictures, but so send us pictures. Warren's looking for an 80-inch shed. I would like to see some people take a
2-inch
picture of
spur.
a 2-inch spur because I've seen pictures of them, but I think the one that I had mounted was the inch and 3/4 was the biggest that I've ever seen.
I
That
don't
I've
know.
ever
I don't even know if I've
Huge.
killed one over an inch and a half. I'd have to look at my thing.
Huge. Well, the weight though is even more impressive to me sometimes than the spurs. That one that Alyssa killed that time was crazy.
Well, that was that
Me and her
year.
both
They
killed
both
them.
killed them on the same year, and they were 28 pounds. Yeah, that's a giant turkey.
Humongous.
Giant turkey.
You know what I'm looking for.
Yeah.
Okay. So I don't know what Easton's gonna do on this one because he's heard this one, but it is so good. And a loyal podcast follower sent me this too, so shout out to him. So if you took every person in the world, okay, which there's 8 billion people, how long do you think that?
I'm kidding. It's
How long do you think that it would take them, all of them, pissing into the Grand Canyon to fill it up?
I have no idea.
You got to take a guess. 8 billion people.
8 billion people.
And the average person pees about a half a gallon a day.
I don't know, maybe 20 years.
20
Dude,
years.
there's no point in even trying to get somebody to guess these numbers. You just need to read it.
Well, I already know the numbers though.
We don't though. Like it's gonna be impossible for somebody to possibly guess these numbers with how you're presenting it. So you need to get the fact out.
That is a fact. It's 800,000 years
Yeah,
of consecutively pissing into the Grand Canyon.
that's why it's called the Grand Canyon.
Well,
yeah, because
still,
that many
that's
people can piss in it for that long.
That's asinine.
I don't see why that's a wacky. I find that useless.
Well, they're
but-
probably taking into account that some of it is evaporating as you pee and all these other calculations.
I don't know. I have another one. Let me see if I
Who?
can.
What? Why would someone even have
don't know
sat down and done? Let's see what the volume of the Grand Canyon.
That's my point with
is.
it. Hannah sent it to me too for Warren.
Do what?
That one when she sent that to me, I was like, why did that's not even a fact. Like,
Who
what's
cares?
the matter? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know.
Warren liked it though, so
That would be
So-
like asking me how long would it take to walk
yeah.
to
So
Saturn.
Joey,
Oh, bullshit. That's 100% a green button. So here's another one that I think is pretty interesting. Did you know that spicy food is not actually spicy?
no.
Do you know that?
It has something to do with your taste buds.
No. So it's actually a pain signal, not a taste, that's triggered by the chemical compound of capsaicin found in chili peppers. So the hot or spicy sensation we experience when eating chili peppers is actually a pain signal sent to the brain, not a taste. And so
That's
other
good.
animals and things don't have, it's not spicy to them.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I did not know that.
Yeah, I thought that was pretty crazy.
All right.
Those were poor.
How?
The second one was better than the first one.
Oh yeah, but look at where
Dude,
you're coming from.
you cannot say that on the first one. It has 2 million likes, 1.8 million freaking shares, okay? So, obviously, there's a whole bunch of people that think that 94 million views.
What is the benefit of it? There's no effect of it. It's
Wacky.
never going to be done.
The
It's never
definition of the section is wacky.
All right. I think it's poor.
So that would be
Little
like
button man
asking the
fails
question,
again.
if we put out a picture of Joey's third nipple, how many views would it get on TikTok? There's no point.
Didn't I do one about no, the views
You did do something
validates
about
that
third
it's
nipples.
not normal. Yeah,
All
well,
right.
it was like what,
Close her up.
33% of people or something that had
It was
third
weird.
nipple.
It was a lot more than we thought.
All right. So here we go. We are done with talking about unfortunately for you guys, hopefully you don't deal with the Chickenbird. Hopefully you're dealing with Crackheads, and the choir ones or the Sunday strollers. That would be the best turkey you could run into. However, I bet you that we're going to get one more of these in before you guys get to go turkey hunting. A lot of you guys don't start till mid-April and later. So anyhow, with that, we sure appreciate you guys joining us and tuning into the Raised Hunting Podcast. As Warren mentioned earlier, leave reviews, man, if you would think about it, and share this with your friends. Let them know that there's a podcast out there that's trying to help people get better at hunting, and we will do our best to do what we can. Don't forget, raisedhunting.com. You can find all the stuff that we sell, whether it's apparel, whether it's the canine line or the scents. And I'm getting more and more questions. I guess guys are already starting to think deer already. All of our scents will be back in June this year. We'll have everything. So, and we got some cool additions and changes to the scents, so we're looking forward to it. Other than that, thanks for joining us on the Raised Hunting Podcast. We'll see you next week.